The Arizona Coyotes have made moves ahead of the Friday trade deadline. Two major moves, and Bill Armstrong is not done. We're going to talk about that on today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Robyn Leonio. That's Carl Pavlak right beside me. On today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast, I want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube. We got a great show on today's episode. We are talking the NHL trade deadline. Arizona making two moves on Wednesday. Carl talked on a really quick episode yesterday about Shane Gostisbehere. We'll circle back to that in a little bit, but we're going to start off, Carl, by talking about the Arizona Coyotes trade of Jakob Chychrun to the Ottawa Senators. You have the conditions and the full details on this one. It's a really interesting one.
It definitely is. I don't know if it is what we were expecting, but it definitely happened. The Ottawa Senators have sent back conditional first round pick in 2023, conditional second round in 2024 that was previously acquired from the Capitals, and a second round pick in 2026. The conditions of the pick, I'm just going to read this out from the Ottawa Senators Twitter account. The 23rd first round pick is a top 5 protected. If met, pick becomes a 24 first round unprotected. Additionally, should the Sens reach the 23 Eastern Conference Final, which seems like a fantasy, the second round pick becomes 2024 first round top 10 protected. If that condition is met, the pick becomes a 25 first round unprotected.
Those are some complicated conditions. You're like, imagine this, imagine that somehow the 2023 pick becomes top 5, that top 5 protected because it gets into, they somehow climb up that much, right? And it's like, okay, that's going to move to 2024. And that fantasy scenario happens. Imagine, how does that work? Because you have a top 10 protected in 2024 as well as an unprotected first round in 2020.
Yeah, it could potentially be a very lucrative scenario for the Coyotes. I do think it's hilarious that the Senators are planning for either making it to the Eastern Conference Finals or winning the lottery. Like,
they have both sides. They have both sides covered, but it can also backfire on them.
Yeah. All this time we've been hearing that Bill Armstrong wanted a first, a prospect, and an NHL player. Honestly, I'm fine with there not being a player. It's the end of the season. Don't need to necessarily add anyone else. They're getting a first, and if Ottawa continues to be a bad team, it's going to be a really good first in a very deep draft. So I'm kind of fine with that. But I don't know. This feels very anticlimactic.
Yeah, and it does, because I think we were all hoping that Jakob Chychrun would give a return of a blue chip prospect, at least one blue chip prospect and a roster player, because we're like, we need to fill in shoes that are not already there. Yeah. That's one. But I think here's another thing to think about. And yeah, of course, we didn't get what we wanted. And I think Bill Armstrong probably didn't get what he wanted. But we're also got to consider this. The Coyotes are a tanking team. They are Like, if you aren't smelling Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli, or any of the other top 4 or top 5 picks in this upcoming draft, you better well smell it now.
Yeah. I mean, it has been reported, and this has been speculated for a while, that money was the major reason. The Coyotes did not want to take money back,
Mm-hmm.
which is frustrating, but a situation that we've been in before. The Coyotes go through these bouts. I can understand Morello not wanting to spend money right now when they're not making that much at the arena. It's just really frustrating to watch. It's really disheartening to kind of see the narrative being built around this being, a poverty franchise, which is a charge that we've heard before. And could it have gotten a better deal if the Coyotes took money back? Probably. How much better? I'm not sure. I think that Ottawa Senator first rounder is going to be the best first rounder you're going to get. And I don't necessarily wasn't too high on any of the Ottawa prospects in terms of what would realistically be coming back. So
And the only roster player, also prospect, that I wanted from Ottawa was also a pipe dream and getting Shane Pinto. But
yeah, Shane Pinto was kind of like the high mark, like wasn't going to happen, but there didn't really seem to be too much like beyond that. And I do kind of think that the Senators are going to finish in the bottom 10. Like this could be a top 10 pick. And if that's the case, that is a good job by the Coyotes. It's something we can work with.
if that pick ends up becoming a 6 through 10, yeah, a 6 through 10 pick, that's a win right there.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're not going to know that until the end of the season.
Until a little bit past the end of the season, because that's when the lottery happens.
Sure. Although depending on where they finish, like there's a rule about how many spaces you can move up now, right?
Yes, I think you can't move up more than, I think, more than 5. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up because it's going to be relevant information for us now. So
Yeah, we'll look it up. Absolutely. We'll have like a little tankathon episode for you guys,
yeah,
so you can see where the Coyotes potentially finish if we run it now.
yeah.
But that's
I'm just
another episode.
very glad that the saga's over, though. Like,
I know we were holding it over. We were in a holding pattern. Like here on
yeah,
the podcast, we're like, "Is it happening? Is it happening? Is it happening?" And it wasn't happening. And we're just like, "Oh, come on, just freaking, you know, cut it off."
yeah. It's been a year and 3/4 of a season, just like a lot, and now it's finally done, and we can move on and kind of figure out what the next step is, which I think has to be rebuilding the blue line because it is completely torn apart now.
It is completely torn apart now, and we're going to talk about, why that's the case and the implications, what the Coyotes probably need to do moving forward from the Jakob Chychrun trade in just a little bit. But first, a word from our sponsors. And the midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's right, bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to the point scores, to threes drained. I'm always looking at Carl. We're here in Arizona. There's a new guy in Phoenix in the NBA, in Kevin Durant. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys who are maybe also Suns fans, make some bets surrounding that guy. You can probably make some good money. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss a chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So let's go ahead and talk about those future implications, Carl. And now what the Coyotes need to do because lost not just one but two top defensemen. Shane Gottisbehere was traded. You did that episode on yesterday, right after shortly after it happened, and now there's it's a complete blow up. There's everything's gone. Those were your top two guys, and I'm not saying the rest of them have not made an impact because there have been, but you really need some guys to step up even more so, and you need to fill in with better people because I do not believe that what the Coyotes have now is even worthy of anything.
Yeah, we are starting to see the moves already. Like Victor Sostrom had been called up for a while. Um, Vladislav Kolyachonok was called up and played
He
in
was
last
just
night's
called up,
game.
yeah.
So they're doing those kind of internal things, but one of the things that we discussed around the draft was the fact that if the Coyotes are shopping Jakob Chychrun, they didn't draft a defenseman who can replace him outside of maybe Duba, but like even
Right.
still, like I don't necessarily think he is slated to be a top two guy. I don't know. Like they are going to need to fill and get someone with that first round pick who can actually contribute to the Coyotes blue line. I really wish they had drafted Lane Hudson because that would have been a perfect candidate for replacing Jakob Chychrun potentially.
Absolutely. And I think that's maybe what um the Chychrun trade might be going towards, right? Because I'm taking a look at some of the top prospects, and if they're able to get, a top 10 pick, I'm taking a look at they have I'm looking at Daily Faceoff as an example here on top prospects in the 2023 draft. And Forgive me for butchering this name, but Axel Sandin Pelika, right hand defenseman, is the number 10 player in the upcoming draft and is a right shot defenseman.
Yeah, that's good. We could take that. And going back to what we said before, it's really going to depend on where that Ottawa pick is because we're hoping the Coyotes pick is going to be top 5. That would be ideal.
Because I think what was really surprising, Carl, to me, and I know you talked about it, but what that Gostisbehere trade return was, I think that kind of threw a bigger loop. I thought they were going to get a better deal on that. But I will say, and I know you probably said, I know you said it. You can't complain too much because the Coyotes got him for free.
Yeah, like I do kind of wonder because that is something I've seen a lot. People are saying we should have gotten more for Gostisbehere. I don't know how much better it could have been. Like, what is it going to be like a second as opposed to a third? Like,
I was gonna say though, like move up the year though, because 2026. I was like, I mean, then again, 2026 might be a good draft. There's some prospects who are kind of being talked about already, but that's a third rounder, so it's just like,
yeah, but it's also Carolina. Like, that they're probably going to be end of the draft for this year, next year, third year. No one really knows about that one. Like, so, and I do think it's important that they keep adding pieces as the rebuild goes on. You don't want to kind of like stagnate your picks. But yeah, it's definitely uh, not really ideal, I would say. It's just, what are they going to do with it? Who are they going to bring in? Because right now your future is Valimaki. He's been playing really well. Mosier, he's been good. I think he may have taken a little bit of a step back this season compared to last.
but I think he's still one of the future guys.
Yeah.
Valimaki and Mosier, I think, 2 years down the road, will step into a really big role there as the Coyotes.
Yeah. Soderstrom and Kolyachonok,
They'll
they're
they're just knocking on the door, and
Yeah.
they're good. They fit in well on, to start things off, but they still need some time to really adjust to the NHL level.
Yeah. But who's your number one guy? Because I don't see any of those guys being your number one guy or your number two. Like even like
Right now, yeah, there is none.
yeah,
That's the problem. They need to find that. And I will say this: for the rest of this year, they're in no rush. They're
yeah,
tanking. This is and the management kind of essentially designed this to happen. They're trying to get Connor Bedard or Adam Fantilli or got his first name, but Carlson or
yeah,
any of the top 5 picks, because those are golden. You can pick up any of those 5, and they'll be future difference makers. Of course, Connor Bedard is the guy you want because he will turn around a franchise in a heartbeat. He is a forward. Coyotes don't really need a whole lot of that right now, but take that, and then with whatever you else get, make sure you draft defensemen.
yeah. And not necessarily defensemen like Maverick Lamoureux, who is, you know, big, and I think he's probably a can't miss third pairing guy. But like you need to make a couple of gambles on players who could theoretically be top pairing defensemen, and that is going to be a risk because unless the Coyotes get like the fourth and the fifth pick, or fourth and the sixth, let's say Ottawa completely goes in the bucket, like you're not going to get like a guaranteed top pairing defenseman. Like you are going to need to take a gamble. So I do
Yeah,
think that we will hopefully see the Coyotes just draft like a wide berth of defensemen in this year's draft.
but I will say this. I will say that in the years to come, though, I think a top bearing defenseman is going to be coming through free agency.
Sure. You don't see too many of them,
I
but
mean, top pairing for the Coyote, at least Coyote standards, right?
yeah.
We're not saying an elite top pairing, someone who can at least hold down and understand what the role of a top pairing defenseman means.
Or like a blockbuster trade, which could still happen. The Coyotes are going to have like a lot of picks depending on where they land. It'll be interesting, but yeah, that's a whole lot of uncertainty. And I don't know about you. I don't like uncertainty when it comes to stuff like that.
No, I mean there's a lot of question marks in place for that, and it's really interesting. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk some other future implications, and maybe another future. Who's up next to be on the block and to get shipped out of Arizona in just a moment. But first, we're gonna take a quick word from our sponsors.
If you're hiring, you need to get Indeed because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must have requirements or else you don't pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do all of that. And Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process so you can find great talent through time saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must have requirements. I have not hired anyone, but whenever I'm looking for a job, Indeed is one of the places I go because I know it can really connect me with people who are looking for my skills. So, what I want you to do is start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at indeed.com/locked on. This offer is valid through March 31st.
So now let's talk, Carl, about the next player up to get traded by the Arizona Coyotes, because I think that it's not really much of a surprise, because if you look on hockey Twitter, this player's name is like, at least not on the surface level, like still a little bit of digging, but like you're like, okay, you know this player's coming up next. But Nick
Yeah.
Bukestad, because he was scratched for trade related purposes earlier this week, and um he's got to be next.
Yeah. Bukestad, he's got a really good team friendly deal, so you can kind of expect him to be like on the block. He, like Gostisbehere, has really shown that like he can rebound. He still has it. I love his game this season. He has as many goals with the Coyotes as he did in his last 2 years with the Wild, which is just really impressive. Um, and let's be honest, Nick Schmaltz's name was also on the record, but he just took a puck to the jaw last night. So who knows what's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, like Nick Schmaltz has had like, I think he's been his name has been up there, and if there's a player who's going to get a big return, should they get traded, would be Nick Schmaltz. I think even despite the injury, I
Yeah.
think a lot of teams are probably going to hold back on trade, like at least trade deadline wise, on picking him up because of that. But he's another player that will really potentially be traded if not the trade deadline, at the off season.
Yeah. Also, since the Coyotes are in a money saving mode, it needs to be pointed out that he is going to be making the most of his money in the next couple of years. So if you're looking to cut costs, that would be it. Uh, I do think it's very frustrating because I think you're trading a player who plays extremely well with Clayton Keller without a suitable replacement yet. Like I don't know if Dylan Gunther is ready to take that spot with Keller and Hayton, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting. I think, um, you know, I'm the kind of person that would like at first, when I first heard the news, I'm like, I don't know, because I really think Nick Schmaltz can hold as a core member of the Coyotes, but I really think that like in terms of the core veterans to say will be like, throughout this rebuild is going to be Clayton Keller and Lawson Krause.
Yeah.
Like,
Keller and Krause are definitely the key posts. They are kind of, I think, who you build around. That's always kind of been known from the start. I think the reason that Schmaltz wasn't like sold off with the likes of Dvorak and Connor Garland in that first wave is simply the fact that no one knew if he was worth it. He
yeah,
had you know, a moderately sized contract, but a rough year under Tocchet. He really kind of came in, stepped up, and played extremely well with Keller and without Keller when Keller went down. He is also a player who does have a pretty substantial injury history as well. Like his last injury, if he is injured, puck to the face, no one's gonna really deal with that okay. So I don't think it's necessarily like a weakness on his part.
I mean,
I think it's
I will say, luckily, for trade related purposes, a puck to the jaw is something that, like, all right, you can kind of just like, get some brace for your jaw, get like wear a full cage temporarily, get back out there, you're good. It's
yeah,
not like an ACL injury or like a broken bone that like you're gonna be out because there's no way you can skate.
yeah. I mean, good is maybe
I would,
overplaying it a little, but
yeah, not
playable.
good, but like it's workable.
Yeah. What about goaltending? Do you think Ingram gets or Vimelka? I know his name was coming up earlier this year.
It's hard to say. I haven't really thought about it too much because I'm like, I think a lot of me was focusing on God's despair focusing on Chychrun, and focusing on Bukestad. Like,
Yeah.
my brain was literally on those three. I didn't even think about the goalies. But it's very possible.
He is stealing fewer games right now. So I think if you are like looking to make the team worse, there's less of a reason to do that.
Yeah. And on top of that, with who was just shipped out and just got Ghost and Chychrun alone, is the Coyotes are gonna like that's it's gonna batter both of those goalies really quickly, and it's gonna look bad. It's gonna look
Yeah.
bad. It's gonna be, like I said, they're gonna look like the team that we expected them to be at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Um, I think we saw that already last night against Dallas, where Coyotes may have gone up 2-0 to start, but they gave up quite a few goals after that. I think it was what,
Right.
4 unanswered. So
Mhm.
like that's a problem. If you're looking to win, it's definitely here's what I want. If they do ship out Bukestad or Schmaltz, I hope it's for prospects, not picks. I really do. Like I, the rebuild may have taken a step back this season.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Bill Armstrong is touting himself as like, I am building this team through the draft. It's like, okay, great. But sometimes players in the draft don't develop in the way you want them to. And you want players, um, yeah, okay, these players might have a high ceiling, but you don't know what their floor is. Pick
Yeah.
up players who maybe have a moderate ceiling, like at least a moderate ceiling now, but they have a good floor. That way they are NHL worthy.
Or it's players who may be the right fit ceiling wise, floor wise, but timeline wise aren't. Like especially defensemen who historically take longer to develop. Like Jakob Chychrun was an anomaly as a 16th overall defenseman who was able to jump into the NHL right away. That's not going to be the case like 99% of the
You're
time.
not gonna get like Chikrin's or Makars out of out of the blue.
Yeah. It's it's definitely one of those like I just I don't know. I really hope that the Coyotes are able to figure something out because right now I'm seeing the plan and it's just like how much of it is just needing to save money versus making sure that the rebuild is going right.
And I will say this, to kind of getting ready to close things off because we're running out of time, is it's a bit of I think it's kind of a bit of both sides. They're still trying to build through the draft, which is again fine for what you can, as much as for a little bit, but you want to be able to speed up the draft as much as possible. So you want to be able to have what you can in place. You want and like I said, you need to know where those floors are. You need to know, um, maybe those potential ceilings, those who can maybe fit in right away. You need to get all those in place. And the money saving aspect, I get it. Kind of confused me when they go ahead and decide to pick up, 25% of Patrick Kane's salary, but that's a whole another discussion.
Yeah.
But they're up there. They're right at the salary floor right now. So okay, that's fine. A few years down the road, when the TED comes in, when it opens, you want that team to be spending because you want them to be. I wouldn't say elite because that's far fetched, but you want them to be a good team
Yeah.
by then because you want butts in seats. You want to be able to show it was worth it.
Yeah. There's definitely a logic to keeping the budget down during the
The
mullet
mullet
arena
years.
days, but like you're gonna need to have a good team in place to sell a new arena because that is going to be like your first impression for a lot of people. Like especially the fact that seating at the mullet is so small. Like a lot of people in the East Valley, their first game may be at the TED. So you want to give them reason to come back.
Exactly. Well, do you have any final thoughts before we finally close things off?
Nah, I think that's kind of it for right now. Give them a reason to come back. It's a good
Give
thought
him
to
a
end
reason to come back. 100%.
on.
Anyway, that's
Actually, one more thing. Just want to bring this up. We did just launch the GoFundMe to make Five for Howling independent. You can find that on Twitter. I have linked to that. So if you could donate, I would really appreciate it.
there you go. 100%. And we're out of time, though, on this episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, to like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, on Instagram at LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leonio. Carl Pavlak is at 5 for Howling. That is 5 spelt out, the number 4, and Howling. Interact with us, ask a question you might have, we might answer right back, or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy, and don't forget to howl on.